Recording stopped. they can either grant the application with conditions, reserve its decision, refuse, deny the application as submitted, or defer the application to another public meeting. It's very important that the town receives the correct names and addresses of the individuals having an interest in each of the applications being heard. Therefore, if you plan to speak to the committee at this meeting, or if you wish to receive a copy of the decision, you must provide your name and address or email address to the Secretary or Treasurer. Under the Planning Act, any person or public body may appeal this decision. The appeal period for minor variances is 20 days from the date of decision and 20 days from the date of the mailing of the notice of decisions for consent. The deadline for each application will be provided in the notice of decision. The applicant, prior to the committee rendering its decision, may wish to have their application deferred until the next scheduled meeting. Such a request will be at the sole discretion of the committee. The public meeting is being recorded and live streamed, so your name and other personal information are being recorded in accordance with the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection Act. This will help our recording secretary prepare an accurate minutes. So before we get started into the actual applications, the way today's meeting is going to proceed for the first 5 applications, so that's B2722, B2822, B2922, B3022, and B3122. These are all consents to sever on Robinson Road. So for the sake of time, Joel is going to read, I believe, unless something has changed, the 5 applications together, but they will be voted on separately.
Thank you. So for the first applications to be considered, we have files B2722, B2822, B2922, B3022, and B3122. The subject lands are legally described as Registered Compiled Plan 1696, Lot 42, Lot 44, Lot 40, Lot 41, and Lot 43. Each application proposes to create 1 residential building lot for a total of 3 lots. And the town's Public Works Department has provided these comments with respect to all of those aforementioned applications. The Public Works Department does not oppose the applicant's request. And similarly, with all these applications, the town has received comments from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, who have advised they have no objection to the approval of this application. In addition to the comments that we have from internal departments and external agencies, we have 2 comments from the public. The comments, I'll read them in just a moment here. The first set of comments apply to the following applications: B2722, B2822, B2922, B3022, and B3122. They're from Tony Moretta and Tracy Golding, who reside at 73 Iris Drive, Wasaga Beach. They note that they are planning to attend, so I'm not sure if they are in attendance to today and they wanted to speak to them directly. Is that your preference, or did you want to speak? Have me just read these comments? So I'll read the letter that was put forward. We're planning to attend the Committee of Adjustment public meeting on Wednesday, February 15th, 2023. We're opposed to these applications pending resolution to our following concerns and questions. Question 1, the health of the trees on our property. One of the reasons we moved from a newly developed tree-barren subdivision in the GTA to Wasaga Beach, and our lot in particular, was because we wanted a property with mature trees on it. Has there been an arborist study for these properties? If not, we would respectfully request one be done before the Committee of Adjustment makes their decision. Our concern is that during land clearing, the root systems of our trees would be compromised, which would then become a safety issue, requiring removal for safety reasons, and the purchase of planting of replacement trees at considerable expense and inconvenience. Should the subject lots be severed, we would be concerned that twice as many of our trees could be affected. Question 2, the impact that severing building lots for higher density housing will have on our town service and amenities. Our impression is the town's services and amenities are currently overburdened. For example, we don't have a high school. Collingwood Hospital is stretched out with our population as it is. We do not have enough doctors and medical staff. Waitlisting for long-term care are incredibly long. Traffic is getting much busier, requiring more stoplights and crosswalks to be installed. Parking at the beach is inadequate for our town citizens to have access. Question 3. Drainage concerns as a result of backfilling. The lots in question lie very low from the height of the road and will require extensive backfilling. Question: 2 of the subject lots back onto our property. Will the drainage and grading of the 2 extra houses, 4 in total, impact our property negatively? Question 4. Elevation issues. After backfilling, our lot may be lower than new lots, resulting in much less privacy as 4 houses per lot would then be overlooking ours. Is there a stipulation regarding how many stories high each house is allowed to be? Question 5, architectural control. One of the reasons our neighborhood is appealing is the diversity and style of houses on large lots with some landscaping. Our concern is that if the lots are severed, will there be architectural control put in place in order to avoid construction of cookie-cutter appearance of identical houses, creating a very urban subdivision bland atmosphere? Thank you for your consideration. We look forward to attending the meeting on February 15th. Sincerely, Tony Moretta and Tracy Golding. In addition, we have received the following comment, which is only applicable to file B2922. This is from a Carson Kramer who resides at 55 Iris Drive. And the comments are, please convey that I have 2 multi-trunk oak trees very close to my back lot line, one with 2 trunks and the other with 3 trunks. These trees are around 80 to 100 feet tall and dominate my backyard. In purchasing the house over 13 years ago, I was under the impression that a single dwelling home would eventually be built there. I was thinking the oaks would survive that build, but with 2 homes, I'm sad to say that I have been advised that would be unlikely. Therefore, I am opposed to the severance of Lot 40. The proposed changes will undoubtedly result in there now being 2 homes instead of 1 behind my oaks. The additional home's foundation is now more likely to disturb the tree's root base and increase water drainage problems from the new ground elevations. As well, the clearing of all current 5 lots of their trees will also create a higher level of exposure to the elements on my oaks, which will increase the chances of uprooting the trees. However, should the severance proceed, I know it is in the best interest of the future new home buyers and myself to remove these trees at the time of Lot 40 clearing. When that clearing happens, I am asking that the oaks be included as part of the clearing process by whomever removes the current trees on Lot 40 or the new Lot 40A and 40B lots. I am available for further discussions on this. Carson Kramer. P.S. The squirrels are not happy either. Those are the comments that we received in advance. I'm not sure if there's anyone in attendance who has additional comments.
I'm going to address my husband, who's going to speak for both of us.
Certainly, if you'd like to come up. And if you could just come up here. If you could put your name and your address for the committee members.
Certainly. Do you want me to speak
please.
here? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for attending. Just make sure when you are speaking that you're speaking into the mic.
Okay.
And don't forget to put down your name and all that other information. Thank you.
Good. There are several concerns, and I can understand the neighboring property owners. Okay, certainly. My name is Frank Camiso. I am the husband of Marietta Camiso. Her maiden name is DeLeo, and the 5 lots in consideration today are family lots owned by the DeLeo family. So if we could go over the concerns one by one, and I could try to address them.
The applicants, if you'd like to speak to those.
Right. Oh, I see. Okay, yes. We intend to sever these lots and to, in the future, build homes that our family members would occupy. So we want to be good neighbors, and we want to be good, good members of the community. The concerns that are raised are valid and should be addressed. I think a lot of the concerns would be addressed by the fact that the lots are long and the houses would probably be built closer to Robinson Road, leaving a large backyard, and also try to conserve the existing mature trees that are in the backyard. So that then, if I'm not to address the concerns individually, would you like me to address any of the concerns individually?
So first of all, I will ask if there's any other members of the public here today wishing to speak to this application, either online or in person.
Hi, I am the owner of Lot 40. I'm Rosalind Russo. And DeLeo is my maiden name. And yes, we also come from the city. So when we go to Wasaga and we're planning to build 2 lots, I have 2 sons. And we come to Wasaga for its beauty, natural beauty and nature. So that would definitely be considered and respected.
Sorry, I'm just gonna interrupt you for a second. So you're here for one of these applications. You're the owner of the property, you said?
Yes, I am Rosalind Russo and I own Lot 40.
Okay, so
Wonder question now.
we will get you to maybe speak to some of the comments, but right now I'm just looking for any of the members of the public that kind of want to speak to this these applications, I should say. And I don't see anyone raising their hand online. And the 2 people that are in council chambers, do you wish to come up and add any more to what Joel has already stated? Okay, perfect. Okay, so seeing no other comments from the public, I will turn it over to the agent on file. And is it Frank?
Yes.
And you're here on behalf of all of the applications, is that correct?
No, my wife owns one of the lots.
One of the lots, and sorry, which lot was that?
Maybe you can help us. It's Marietta DeLeo.
So that would be lot 44 for application B2822.
B28?
That's correct.
Thanks. Okay, so you've obviously heard the comments from the public, so do you wish to address any of those concerns that were raised, and specifically as they relate to, I guess, your lot and your application?
Yes, I don't recall all of them in order. I recall most of them, so maybe you can help me go point by point, if that's possible. I think one of the concerns was the mature trees, and I think I've already talked about that, where the lots are close to 150 feet deep, and so the back portion of the property abutting the existing neighbors would probably be not disturbed by the construction of the homes. I think one of the other concerns was a concern for sort of cookie cutter type houses. That's not the intent. the homes that are going into Robinson Road, most of them are nice homes, and each one has its own character. We intend to do the same thing, build nice homes. And drainage was one of the other issues. We intend to work with the municipal authorities in making sure that the lot is properly drained into the storm sewer system that was built, and we paid our portion for the development of that. I think one of the other concerns was the sanitary sewers and services to the lots. We worked for many years in conjunction with the municipality to get Robinson Road built and to get the services installed. And we paid for our portion of all of that. At the time, we were given the option of 2 hookups for each lot, and we took that option and paid for the second hookup for each lot in anticipation of future severance. We would, I don't know if there's any other issues that I can't remember.
Did the committee have any concerns that they wanted specifically addressed, or was there?
If that is everything that you wish to speak to, then that's fine. The committee members may have some additional questions for you.
Okay, thank you. So in closing, I would just like to say that it is our intent to do everything that we can to make it as nice a living area as possible for ourselves and for the neighbors, and to work in cooperation with the municipality to respect all of the concerns and requirements. Thank you.
Sorry, if you just want to stay there, just in case the
Certainly.
committee has additional questions. But before I pass it over to the committee members, I think online we had, is it Rose Lynn, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so you've hopefully heard some of Frank's comments, and I know you're here for, I think, B2922, so that's
Yes.
lot 40, I think?
Yes, I'm lot 40, and my mother and my sister-in-law are also online for the other lots.
Okay, so do you wish to speak to your application specifically?
As I said, this is a lot that was purchased years ago by my dad for his 4 children and for himself and his wife. And it was all to have it residential in a beautiful area, because we all really appreciate Wasaga, and it's our family homes. So that is our intent, to build lovely homes for our family and to continue to enjoy the quiet beauty of Wasaga.
Perfect, thank you for those comments. And, sorry, is it Anna Marie? Does she wish to speak to anything? And if you can, oh,
Yeah, okay. I think that my brother-in-law and sister-in-law have expressed how we all feel. I think they're accurately expressed how we feel. And my mother-in-law is here too. And how do you feel, Mom, about what Rosa and Frank said?
I go along with everything that our family's going through, putting forth. Everything is okay.
And I just want to also just assure you that, as Rosalyn said, we do really love Wasaga. We have many years of going there in the summers, and so that is our intent, to take care of it and to continue taking care of Wasaga for ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren.
Perfect, thank you for those comments. Now I will just ask the committee members if they have any questions of the staff or the individuals that are here online. And I'm going to start with Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the planners. And really, it's just me trying to clarify things for the many people, whether online or in person. Would it be fair to say that some of the issues that have been raised, although very pertinent to their lives, are outside the direct purview of the Committee of Adjustment? There's a second part to that question, but is that true?
I would say that there were some concerns raised that would be outside of what would be considered by the committee.
Thank you. And is it also fair to say, or I would hope, that during this process, actually, because there's such a line of them, is this going to be handled by site plan or plan of subdivision?
This would be handled specifically just through the consent process. So each lot, through the conditions, would have to provide reference plans and overall lot grading plans, but there would not be any type of additional application required in this instance.
So is there any way for the planning department and the engineering department, for that matter, to address those concerns and put people's minds at ease, or to ensure that the concerns have been heard and acted upon?
Certainly the concerns that were raised with drainage, with water levels and that type of thing, that will be addressed through the overall lot grading plan, which is noted as a condition. In the staff report, it does speak to town services being located throughout the municipality, so it wouldn't specifically speak to medical only, but it would speak to commercial services available. Outside of that,
Would it address their concerns with regard to tree cutting and that type of thing?
tree cutting from the interpretation of planning department would be a civil matter through the Forestry Act. So if the committee were to choose to approve said decision, that would be the opinion of planning staff, is that would be a matter that would be handled through civil process after the fact.
And my final question, and I thank you very much for it, I'm really just trying to clarify things for the public that are concerned. Do we, once their concerns have been expressed, both in writing or in person, do we, meaning the municipality, take it upon ourselves to reach out to them to explain how or in what way their concerns have been addressed? Or is it just done at this point and they're on their own?
Not typically. It would be done through this process here where those concerns would be addressed, and if they're fair, obviously considered by committee members.
Well, I understand that part of, I'm sorry, I guess there is one more. So the things that are outside of our purview, that are still concerns of the citizens, they're not going to be reached out to directly by staff to let them know what's happening?
That would not be standard procedure. So if there was a concern that was raised that didn't make its way on as a condition, it would not be a concern that was considered by the committee members.
So that, therefore, it would be fair to assume at this point that those in the audience that have concerns should be attentive to the process and be calling you people to ensure they understand what's happening and when it's happening, correct?
That would be fair.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I think we have a question or comment from Daniel. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the planners. I observed, looking at those lots, that there's quite an elevation change from the road level to the back of the property, which would be the backyards of some of the citizens that are concerned. I'm just wondering, for clarification purposes, would the grading plans, just to try and answer some questions here, would the grading plans take into consideration that potential pooling that may run along the property lines?
My understanding of overall lot grading and drainage plans is that they should take into consideration the entire property. So I'm not an engineer, I don't want to speak to that condition, but my assumption would be that through that condition,
Yes.
it would be addressed.
So if in fact there they've come to the conclusion that there is some type of potential pooling or whatever, then, you know, on the property lines, there may be some type of a swale or some sort of a drainage system put in to relieve that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm seeing no further comments from the committee members, and I don't have any further comments. So I'm going to close this public portion of the meeting. So thank you very much. You can go back to your seat. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess we will vote on them individually. And are you going to be reading out each application with the conditions? I think all the conditions are the same, correct?
So your preference, all conditions are the same. We can go through and read them, and you can make your decisions for each application after, or I can read them for every application as you make the decision.
So just in the interest of the time, I would just read them once and just make it note it, I guess in the minutes, that they are all relating to these, I think it's 5 applications in total. So if you want to start with the conditions.
Absolutely. So the conditions as noted, and these are specific to each application individually. In consideration of the proposed consents for new lot creation, the Planning Department supports applications B2722, B2822, B2922, B3022, and B3122, and recommends the committee approve the application subject to the following conditions. 1, that 5% parkland contribution as required by the Planning Act be paid as a requirement of the approval of the severance, the parcel severed, and the determination of the parkland contribution will be based upon an appraisal prepared by an individual who is an AIC member. 2, that the applicant provide a deposited reference plan, and said reference plan show all the parcel to be severed. 3, that an overall lot grading plan for the two lots be submitted to the town's Public Works and Engineering Department for review and approval. 4, that all conditions of this decision be fulfilled and the documents presented to the Planning Department for issuance of the certificate of consent within a period not to exceed 24 months from the date of decision. Those are the conditions.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Joel. And so then I will start at the top and work my way down. So application number 1, B2722. So this is Robinson Road, lot 42. And I apologize if I'm not saying the name correctly, but it's Mary DeLeo. I apologize. DeLeo. So this is for consent, and it's that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approve the application from Mary DeLeo, and adjustment hereby approve the application from Mary DeLeo. So do I have a mover? Moved by Daniel, seconded by Harold. All in favor? And I think that's carried by all. And last application, B3122 Robinson Road, lot 43. And this is submitted from Anna DeLeo. And the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the application from Anna DeLeo. And do I have a mover? Daniel, seconded by Harold, and all in favor. And that is carried. And that concludes the 5 applications on Robinson Road. So for the people that are attending in person and in the audience, you're free to go. Thank you very much for attending the meeting. Thank you. So application number 6, B3222. This is for 16 Spots Lane, and it's from Tom and Christina Miguel. Is that correct? And you guys are here? Perfect. So if you wish to come up and just grab a seat at the front. So I. Okay, that's fine. So I will get Joel to read in the application just for the record and just for the purpose of the minutes. It's 2:39 right now. Okay, thank you.
So file B3222, the subject lands are municipally addressed as 16 Spots Lane. The application proposes to create one new residential building lot for a total of 2 residential building lots. The town has received comments from the Public Works Department, who does not oppose the applicant's request. In addition, we have received comments from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, who have issued no objection to the approval of this application. And there has been no other comments received at this point.
Thank you, Joel. And I see a few people here, but and I don't think you guys are here for the application, but I will ask anyways. Are you here to speak to it? No? And is there anyone online wishing to speak to this application? I'm seeing head shaking. All right. Committee members, or I guess I'll give you the opportunity to speak to the application if you want to provide like a brief overview of it.
Yeah, excuse me. My name is Tom Miguel. Before we got here, I read all the comments online and the requirements and the recommendations, and we have a full understanding of what's required, and we're committed to adhering to all the requirements.
Thank you very much. And not seeing any other comments, do any of the committee members have any questions of the applicant? All right, this might be very easy for you. Seeing none, I will close the public portion of the public meeting, and I will call the vote that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the application from Tom and Christina Miguel, and this is in relation to B3222 16 Spots Lane and its consent. Do I have a mover? Moved by Daniel, seconded by Dave, and all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. So moving along, so we're on application number 7. So that is for 1888 River Road West, and it's Abby Scott, and I think she just joined us, so welcome, Abby. So this is for a variance, and for the record, it's 2:42 p.m. And I will turn it over to Joel just to read in the application.
So the file is A2222. The subject land is municipally addressed as 1888 River Road West. And the minor variance is seeking to expand a non-complying building, specifically to maintain interior side yard setbacks. The town has received comments from the Public Works Department, who have no objection to application A2222. And their comments are attached to the staff report as Appendix 3. The town has also received comments from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, who note that NVCA staff are of the opinion that the application can be supported, provided the above noted technical requirements are met through the permitting process. And the comments, I believe, that were previously provided are no longer going to be required, if I'm understanding correct. But the planner is able to speak to that if required.
Okay, thank you very much. And Abby, do you wish to comment on this application, provide an overview just for the committee members? Or do you have someone here that's wishing to speak?
Hi there, everyone. So this project is just looking for relief for the side yard setbacks. And the house that is existing there, they are looking to lift the house and create a basement underneath on the same existing footing and foundation plan. So it's not being expanded at all. But as the house was built quite a long time ago, before bylaw came out, they are over the side yard setback. So we're looking for about 3 inches, I think, on both sides. In terms of the MBCA, the comments that were given, we provided a slope stability test and engineering report, and the MBCA came back as approving and supporting this extension for the side yard setback.
Perfect. Thank you very much for speaking to that. So I will ask the committee members if they have any questions for the staff here today or for Abby. Okay, seeing no comments, I'm going to close the public portion of this meeting and read in. It's okay. Read in the motion, and just bear with me because I lost it. That the Committee of Adjustment approve the application from Abby Scott. And again, this is for application number 7A2222, and it's for 188 or 1888 River Road West, and this is for a variance. Do I have a mover? Dave, seconded by Harold. All in favor? And that is carried. So you're good to go, Abby, or you can stick around if you want to hear the rest of the meeting.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, so on to application number 8, and Rod Reynolds, I believe, is here. This is B0223, and this is for 1656 Street South, part lot 1, 2, and 3. And it's for consent, and time right now is 2:46. And I will pass it over to Joel to read in the application.
So the applications are for B0223 and B0123. These subject lands are described as Plan 1092, Block B, Parts 1, 2, and 3, municipally addressed as 1656 Street South. The applications propose to create 2 new lots for a total of 3 lots. At this point, the town has received comments from the Public Works Department. The Public Works Department does not oppose the applicant's request. And the town has also received comments from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, who note that they have no objection to the approval of this application, and no additional comments have been received at the time of writing the staff report.
Okay, and I think there's one person online, maybe 2. Do any of you wish to speak to this application? No? Okay. And I'll pass it over to Rod to speak to the application.
Good afternoon. My name is Rod Reynolds. I'm a professional land surveyor, retired. This is one of my standard cases for my builders. They found a big lot. They've been able to divide it into a couple of pieces to make infilling building work. This subdivision was registered in 1953. It's got 5 streets of about 85 lots that were 105 by 142 wide. A lot of them have been divided in half already. This property was actually the parkland that the township didn't want at the time because of the provincial park probably, and they sold it, or the owner then was able to sell it. We presently are dividing the 2 pieces about 47 feet wide, which will fit into the neighborhood quite nicely. And really, that's about all there is to it. It's that simple.
Thank you for your comments. Do any of the committee members have any questions for Rod or any of the planners? No questions. All right, so we will close this portion of the public meeting, and I will read in that the Committee of Adjustment hereby approves the application from Rod Reynolds, and this is again for application number 8B0223, 1656 Street South, Part Lot 1, 2, and 3. Do I have a mover? Moved by Daniel, seconded by Harold. All in favor? And that is carried.
Sorry to interrupt. Not sure if we wanted to go through the recommendations with conditions there.
Sorry,
The conditions are standards. I have no problem, but you can do whatever you want to do.
do we need to read them into the record, or?
I'm not sure if they need to be read, to be completely honest. If the applicant has seen them, or if the agent has been aware of the conditions, I don't know if they need to be read over, but certainly if it's the committee's decision, we can do that.
So you're here as agent, correct?
Yes, and the information was also sent to the owners,
Okay.
and I received no phone call.
And you didn't say anything at the time saying you weren't happy with any of the conditions?
No, the conditions are standard.
So conditions are standard, so I don't think it needs to be read into the record, but I appreciate it. I'm good with that, so.
Good. Thank you for your time.
If Christy doesn't like that, she can yell at me later. I'm just kidding. Christy is great. So, application number 9. Do we need to, I guess, do this? There's 2 applications here, so we need to vote on both?
That would be correct, yes.
Okay. So before you step away, Rod, we just need to vote on the second matter. So this is application number 9, B0123, 1656 Street South, Part Lot 2 and 3. And again, an application was submitted from Rod Reynolds as agent, and it's for consent. And do you want to read the conditions, or are we good with just voting on it?
These conditions are identical to the first set,
Okay, so we're good.
and they were acceptable.
Okay. So do I have a mover? Moved by Dave, seconded by Daniel. Thank you, and all in favor.
I'm far too hard on you guys.
There you go. You're free to go now. Thank you. All right, and the last application for today is application number 10B1521. And this is an application that's returning, I believe, from Christie's comments. And this is for lot 22, Woodland Drive. And Kurt Lehman, is that yourself?
Yes.
Perfect. And this is for consent. And just for the record, it is 2:52 p.m. So I will pass it over to the staff to just read in the application, please.
So the file is B1521. The subject lands are municipally addressed as 183 Woodland Drive, and the application proposes to create one residential building lot for a total of 2 lots. The town has received comments from the Public Works Department, and the Public Works Department does not oppose the applicant's request. The town has also received comments from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, and there's 2 sets of comments that have been received. The most recent, dated February 7th, 2023, Staff have reviewed this application as per our delegated responsibility from the province to represent provincial interests regarding natural hazards identified in Section 3.1 of the provincial policy statement and as a regulatory authority under Ontario Regulation 172/06. The MVCA mapping for the property illustrates flood hazards and slope erosion hazards on the property. Due to the presence of these hazards, the subject property is regulated pursuant to Ontario Regulation 172/06, the authority's development, interference with wetlands, and alterations to shorelines and watercourses regulation. The PPS defines development to be the creation of a new lot, a change in land use, or the construction of buildings and structures requiring approval under the Planning Act. The subject application for consent would create a new lot which does constitute a development as it relates to determining consistency with PPS policy. In accordance with the PPS, 3.1.2, development and site alteration shall not be permitted within a floodway regardless of whether the area of inundation contains high points of land not subject to flooding. Technical staff have reviewed the application previously and have expressed concerns around the hazards. Please refer to these previously issued comments for slope and flood hazards. At the time of writing, fees for this application have not been paid. We respectfully ask that all outstanding fees be paid as a condition of approval. The Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority has reviewed the proposed consent, and based upon our mandate and policies under the Conservation Authorities Act, we cannot approve of this application. Comments dated June 18th, 2021 from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. The PPS defines development to be the creation of a new lot, a change in land use, or the construction of buildings and structures requiring approval under the Planning Act. Natural hazard policies within the PPS generally directs development to areas outside of hazards lands adjacent to rivers and streams which are impacted by flooding. Section 3.1.1 of the PPS states that development shall generally be directed to areas outside of hazardous lands adjacent to the shorelines of the Great Lakes, St. Lawrence River system, and large inland lakes which are impacted by flooding, hazards, erosion, hazards, and/or dynamic beach hazards. B, hazardous lands adjacent to river, stream, and small inland lake systems which are impacted by flooding hazards and/or erosion hazards. And C, hazardous sites. Section 3.1.2C of the PPS states that development and site alteration shall not be permitted within C, areas that would be rendered inaccessible to people and vehicles during times of flooding hazards, erosion hazards, and/or dynamic beach hazards, unless it has been demonstrated that the site has safe access appropriate for the nature of the development and the natural hazard. Section 3.1.2D of the PPS states that development and site alteration shall not be permitted within a floodway regardless of whether the area of inundation contains high points of land not subject to flooding. Generally speaking, technical studies, i.e. geotechnical or natural hazard studies, would typically be required to address development within the floodplain and slope erosion hazards as part of a formal application submission. Further, no technical studies were submitted or the submitted planning justification addressed consistency with Section 3.1 of the PPS. MVCA staff are of the opinion that the above noted consent application is not consistent with the above noted policies of the PPS. Please note that the MVCA does not support proposed lot lines through natural heritage and natural hazard features. Further, any potential building envelope should accommodate minimum setbacks from natural heritage features of 30 meters, which in this case would significantly reduce the amount of land available for development for any proposed new lot and potential building envelope. The MVCA recommend that the consent application as applied, and this is in June 18th, 2021 meeting, be deferred for the following reasons. The application is not consistent with Section 3, natural hazards of the PPS. No slope analysis or geotechnical study was provided. No planning analysis or technical study addressing the existing floodplain hazard on site was submitted. Should the applicant choose to not provide the above noted required information for further consideration, there may be the option to reconfigure the proposed new lot to exclude all natural hazards. And for the committee's benefit, these comments are included within the staff report as Appendix 8 and as Appendix 9. Wasaga Distribution has provided comments to this application, and their comments are such that they have reviewed the proposal and have no objection to the approval, subject to the following comments. Wasaga Distribution has received and reviewed the submitted proposed plan. This review does not imply any approval of the plan. It's noted that there is no electrical service and the applicant must contact WDI for the requirements of providing a new service to the lots in question. A summary of the comments received by the public at the time of writing the staff report has been summarized within Appendix 1 of the staff report. A petition signed by 7 property owners that was submitted on June 18th, 2021 is also included within the staff report as Appendix 2. After writing the staff report, the town has received an additional petition signed by 14 property owners along Woodland Drive and Oxbow Park Drive, I believe. And there is a slight comment that goes with the petition, and I'll read, to the best of my ability, the property owners and addresses that have signed this. So it's dated February 9th, 2023. We, the homeowners of Woodland Drive / Oxbow Drive area, are very much opposed to the severance of Lot 22, as noted in the above referenced application. Our neighborhood is known for the natural unique feel, hence the name Woodland. The proposed severance and the subsequent building of 2 homes will change the entire feel of the neighborhood. Each property on Woodland is approximately 100 feet wide, and we are concerned that severing this property will set a precedent. We have all purchased our homes in this area because of the unique flavor of the area. We are also concerned about the wildlife that use our backyard as a passway to the river and provincial park. We all watch deer, rabbits, foxes, ducks, and snakes, to name a few, cross through daily. Doubling the building capacity for even one lot will impact the safe passage of these potentially endangered species. We are concerned about the potential doubling of the Oxbow population and the traffic that it will create. As it is, there is only one exit for all homes in the Oxbow area. Adding to the population will increase the hazards in the area if evacuation is needed in the event of a flood or fire. So there are a number of owners who have signed this, and I will attempt to read their name as well as the municipal address associated. So I have a Catherine Sorensen from 123 Woodland Drive, Yvonne Fletcher from 113 Woodland Drive, Jennifer Pentola from 163 Woodland Drive, Jim Pentola from 163 Woodland Drive, Dan Budzak from 150 Woodland Drive, Don Caddio of 149 Woodland Drive, Janala Palb of 142 Woodland Drive, Diane Furtado of 158 Woodland Drive, Alan Mick of 107 Woodland Drive, Dwayne Bentley of 91 Woodland Drive, Mike King of 80 Woodland Drive, Mike Bartlett of 88 Woodland Drive, Robert Klondak of 80 Woodland Drive, and Srey Krapumka of 371 Oxbow Park Drive. The town has also received additional comments from Dan Caddio of 149 Woodland Drive, dated Tuesday, February 14th, 2023. It's quite long, so I'm going to read this for you. In response to your letter regarding file number B1521, I would like to submit these written comments. My name is Don Caddio, and I am a homeowner at 149 Woodland Drive. I've owned this property since 2006 after moving from downtown Toronto, and I'm quite convinced this street is one of Wasaga Beach's best kept secrets. Quiet, well positioned away from the noise and traffic of major arteries, and set high on the banks of our lovely Nottawasaga River. It's a lovely tree-lined street with wide estate lots, mostly 100-foot frontage, and acres of provincial park adjacent to the east. I am strongly opposed to this request to sever the lot in question. Your paperwork indicates Robinson Road. I am not sure what this request has to do with Robinson Road unless there is another similar request on Robinson for another severance to which you're drawing attention. I know I shared this form with one neighbor who made the comment, it says Robinson Road. I'm not sure what to do with this. Perhaps this could be clarified, and if error, corrected and resubmitted to appropriate neighbors consistent with your distribution/notification policies. I recall first time around, the letter had another material error of important detail. I'm not sure if these errors are simply clerical, but rather surprising considering the magnitude of the matter at hand. I'm rather concerned that this is being expedited very quickly. Your letter was sent out somewhere around January 26th with written responses to be submitted by February 14th. That's very little time, little more than 2 weeks for a major issue that could affect an entire neighborhood forever. There are a lot of seniors in Wasaga Beach, including on our street, who go away in the winter. And a lot of people in general do a winter escape at this time of year. If you're away for just 2 weeks, you've missed the opportunity to provide feedback on this very important notice. I know neighbors have tried to make contact with the direct neighbor to the west of this property in question at 185 Woodland Drive, and the homeowners seem to be away, and we know these neighbors attended the last committee meeting and had very legitimate concerns. Is there a reason such little time for neighbors to comment and provide feedback is being given to such a very important matter? Surely this short amount of time is unacceptable, and it clearly appears like this is trying to be pushed through super fast. As per policy, this letter is circulated to neighbors within 60 meters of the said property, I believe. I'm assuming with our lot sizes on the street, this is just a handful of neighbors. Could you share with us the number of neighbors who received the letter? In this case, this land was purchased from the adjacent neighbor, 179 Woodland Drive, who has since passed away. Chances are the family of that individual who currently reside in the home will not be in attendance at the meeting nor submit concerns, especially considering they profited from the sale of the land. So that reduces the handful by one household immediately. Are the neighbors across the river on Knox Road within the distance requirement entitled to receive the notice? If yes, did they? Most lots on Woodland Drive are around 100-foot frontage. In your letter, you indicate the lot requesting to subdivide is 88.58-foot frontage, more than 11% smaller than the average lot frontage size on the street as it currently exists. And now you would like to sever it so it's even smaller. You indicate you would like to sever two lots, 44.81 feet and 43.96 feet. Those two numbers don't add to give you a total of 88.58 feet. 44.81 plus 43.96 equals 88.77, not 88.58. Could you please explain the difference? Also, when this lot was sold, the MLS listing, see attached Schedule A, says the lot frontage was 64.97 feet. Could you please explain where the additional 23.61 feet came from to get to 88.58 feet? Is the current storage shed that has been used by the occupants of 179 Woodland Drive for decades part of the severed land? These severed lot sizes would be smaller than a good selection of newer subdivisions where detached homes are currently being built. Take Ramblewood, for example, where the newer detached homes were built on 47.15-foot frontage lots, or Robinson Road, since it was mentioned in your letter, where there are 50-foot lots. These narrow frontages are less than the new ones in newer subdivisions. That's a legitimate concern. Obviously, if the town planning department feels these are appropriate lot sizes for new development in Wasaga Beach, this request falls short of those new basic standards for detached homes. These lot sizes requested in this submission are a real anomaly to our neighborhood, especially considering the very imposing mega mansion that has just been built on the land. It's not in keeping at all with the look of the neighborhood or the lot sizes of the majority of our street, especially on the riverside. You're requesting permission to sever the lots that will result in new lots almost 7 times longer than they would be wide, minus 44 feet frontage and 300 feet deep. That is so out of proportion and clearly not how any neighborhood lots should be planned out. I've attached as Schedule B the Geo Warehouse lots as they currently exist around this property on the riverside, with an arrow pointing to the lot in question as it currently exists. Visually looking at it from this perspective, you get a real feeling for what we're discussing and can really understand the impact of if that narrow lot was further divided in half. It fits in as is. It's already such a long and narrow lot, so severing that in no way keeping with the surrounding neighboring properties. And with another such home built, surely there is going to be a major runoff issue towards the street from such massive roof lines and driveways with virtually no land being left for water or snow absorption. All the runoff would go to Woodland Drive and down the slope to Oxbow Park Drive. Do we know what the plans are going for? Do we know what the plans are going forward? Is this owner planning to reside on our street and become a neighbor, or is this simply being done for financial benefit? Build 2 mega mansions or exaggerated bowling lane-sized lots, sell both, collect the money, and leave the neighborhood blemished forever. I find it rather unneighborly that someone planning such a massive disruption of our neighborhood would not come calling on neighbors directly to share the vision. Also, regarding the sand recently piled in front of 185 Woodland Drive, is this a result of the homeowners' drainage concerns they raised in the first meeting we had on this matter with the committee? I just want to bring attention to the matter and make sure the plan is not to simply fill in that lower grade land around all the trees, as that will most certainly kill all of them. You cannot pile feet of new land around existing established trees and expect they will survive. That is common knowledge. There are currently about 20 vacant residential lots on MLS for sale, and more than 15 others have been expired, been suspended or canceled over the last 6 months in Musaga Beach. This isn't about a shortage of land to be developed. There are lots of opportunities for other pieces of land to be developed and built on without further destroying the woodland nature and feel of our street. Perhaps this individual should wish to pursue some of these residential lots to build upon instead of severing and squeezing more development on this already heavily built on lot. All one has to do is take a walk down our lovely street and see the spacious lots, the wonderful collection of trees, and the breathing room between homes, and none built up on top of each other like what is being applied for, to appreciate the beauty of Woodland Drive. We would all be literally smacked in the face if a second such imposing home is permitted to be built right beside that what has already been built by this owner. There is no need for such overcrowding of development on Woodland Drive. It's one thing to talk about this on paper and behind monitors, but simply take a walk down the street and then stop and look at what we're discussing and the imposing new home that has just been built. Imagine another right beside it of similar nature. This newly built home has 2 massive windows on the east side adjacent to where this severed lot is being suggested. Are we now at the point where we're building homes within a few feet of each other, where we can literally look inside each other's windows from inside our homes? Some respect for and consistency with the rest of the neighborhood is what we would like. Thanks for your time in considering the reasons for my opposition to this severance. Don Cadio. I also have comments provided by I'm sorry, they were summarized in the appendix as Appendix 8. I don't believe there's any additional comments at this point.
Thank you. And I see there's a couple members of the public here wishing to speak, and I think you were mentioned in at least one of the letters. So I will, is it Jennifer? I will start with Jennifer, and if you just want to state your name for the record, your address, and I don't know if you need anything else from her. Name and address, please. Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Pantola. I live at 163 Woodland Drive. I did submit a letter actually via email along with the petition that was in the email. I will gladly read it to you. I have it in front of me if you like.
Yes, please.
Okay. So we, the homeowners of 163 Woodland Drive in the Oxbow area, are very much opposed to the severance of Lot 22, as noted in the above referenced application. Our neighborhood is known for its natural, unique feel, hence the name Woodland. The proposed severance and the subsequent building of 2 homes will change the entire feel of our neighborhood. We feel the older areas of Wasaga Beach should remain with their character and that they are known for, and not become another subdivision like those going up in so many areas. Each property on Woodland Drive is approximately 100 feet wide, and we are very concerned with the severing of this property will set a precedent at 44 approximately feet wide. We have all purchased our homes in this area because of the unique flavor. Due to the size of our properties, we are also concerned about the amount of notifications regarding this potential severance may not have reached sufficient neighbors. This is the second time this sort of notice has occurred, and on both occasions, there have been typos in the notification that may have directly affected how neighbors have reacted to the proposal. We are very concerned about the wildlife that use our yardways as a passway to the river and the provincial park. Doubling the building capacity of even one lot will impact the safe passage of these potentially endangered species. It is only a year ago that we reported a sighting of a hog-nosed snake, which is an endangered species, passing through our property. We are concerned about the potential doubling of the Oxbow population and the traffic that it will create. As it is, there is only one exit for the homes in the Oxbow area. Adding to the population will increase the hazards if the area ever needed to be evacuated in case of flood or fire. Putting these 2 large homes on this property that was originally only planned for 1 will not only change the runoff to the river, but also the surrounding properties and the roadways. And we signed this on behalf of myself, Jennifer, and my husband, James Pentola. I just also like to add that we feel I've spoken to the Nottawasaga Conservation Authority regarding this, and I think they were very succinct in the way that they submitted their notes. We all live on the river. We all need to protect the river, not only those who live on it, but the entire town. And adding to the building, the development of that area is not in the best interest of our neighborhood.
Thank you for those comments. And I believe Dan is here also wishing possibly to speak to this matter as well. And you're just on mute, Dan.
Pretty well everything that's been said so far. I've been with it, with Don's comments and with Jennifer's comments.
Dan, I'm just going to stop you for a second. Can you just state your name for the record and also your address?
My name is Dan Budzak, and I live at 150 Woodland Drive, which is very close to the place that's being built. Pretty well all my comments are in with Don Cadeau's and also with Jennifer's. Pretty well everything they've said, I'm with that too. I don't have anything to add.
Thank you for that. And I don't see anyone else here from the public, so I'm going to pass it over to the applicant, let them obviously discuss some of these concerns that the neighbors have, and so go ahead.
My name is Kurt Lehman. I'm the current property owner. I just a really brief synopsis of I did purchase the property, and the property was actually owned by one brother. The current brother, the brother of him, still lives in the property beside. It's more of a seasonal home. So there were brothers. One ended up deciding to sell the lot out of, I would assume, would be their inheritance from the parents. This file has been ongoing for probably about 2 years now. After the first meeting, there were a lot of concerns, so I did have chats with one of the large proponents of it, my neighbor to the west. I guess he's not in the meeting today. I did address a lot of the comments. I think it was just not knowing a lot of information, and I have a sign posted on the property with my phone number. I'm also a builder, a licensed builder in Wasaga Beach. But these are my own homes. I'm moving into the first one that's currently under construction right now. The process was with the NVCA. It was a lengthy process, a lot of back and forth. And it was basically sort of two files running parallel. One was for a house build and one was for a severance. And so what the NVCA then dictated was, midway through these processes, they said, listen, why don't you work on one home, get that permitted. Once you have that permitted, we can use stronger language for a severance. In that process, then I questioned them. I said, what does stronger language mean to you? Because that can be interpreted in any which way. Ben Kroll at the time said 3 words, would not oppose. So from that, I went forward, and we have the first one permitted. There was a lot of back and forth with grading, the setbacks. We had a professional engineer involved who then did a 40-page document on a soil study. He determined the top of bank stable slope analysis up to where I could build. The NVCA came back, they wanted an additional 6-meter access allowance. My engineer again wrote to the NVCA and said, this is not a requirement, it's simply a policy of yours. We have established the actual technical data up to where he can build. So you can relieve some of that setback or all of it to be safe and stable. They opted not to remove any of that. And so what I did is I reduced the house size by another 8 feet to basically accommodate that extra 6-meter buffer zone for their. So throughout this whole process, I basically, and I was not allowed to walk out. I had grading plan and everything for walkout houses. I used to live across the street from all these people. I mean, not across the street, across the river. I built a home there on Knox Road East. I then purchased this property and moved, and we're planning on moving into this home. It's not, but some of the comments were, I think because they saw my sign, a builder, they thought it's probably interpreted as I'm coming in here trying to cash out, make money, build a couple spec homes. And in discussion with my neighbor to the west, I said, because he had those concerns, drainage concerns, spec homes. I said, did you see the house I built on Knox Road? He said, yes, I saw it, or I heard about it, it's really nice. I said, we build very nice homes to try and bring up the value of the entire neighborhood. We're not going to destroy or take down the aspects or the beauty of the neighborhood just to make money. This is my home that I'm building here, so I have a very personal invested interest. In fact, when we purchased that property, I would deem it was probably close to a junkyard. There was a lot of metal scrap, a lot of sheds on there. We cleaned it up even on the bottom part towards the river. My neighbor came back. He's showing the property to his friends, his neighbors, how beautiful it turned out. We brought up the county, took out the dead trees, cleaned up the entire property. It's like a park now. And so I don't think that what I've done up to now is a detriment to, rather than, like I said, bring up the value of the entire neighborhood. I cleaned up the property. It's gorgeous. We did get the permit for the first build with all the setbacks in place, all the grading. Like I said, we took out the walkout basement to appease the NVCA. We gave them the extra 6-meter buffer zone. We also had correspondence from the NVCA prior to this last notice that they sent out that if I do the first permitting, like I said, they use stronger language and submit a neutral position of comments. What they submitted on the 7th, I guess, is nowhere near a neutral set of comments. And we have, and as I did supply the actual email that was sent out by the planner at that time, that planner is no longer with the NVCA, as I found out today. There's a new guy who may not know the entire history of the file and what was agreed to between both of us, both of our parties, that I would give them this. If I go down this path with these restrictions in place, they would send or amend the comments to a neutral set of comments and would not oppose. It seems like they're backpedaling on that to a point where even my engineer, he wrote the letter, and the NVCA responded, unfortunately, that they would not even recommend or not accept, basically, the engineer's comments. So they're not accepting his technical data on that. But like I said, I still gave them. I tried to work within the confines of the town, of the NVCA. We have the first house under construction. If we duplicate that exact scenario to the severed part, so that we would fall within the same parameters, we're not asking for any variances. A lot of times when people several properties, they also have variances that they need to deal with in order to make the house fit. We're not asking for any of that. Because as Rodney Reynolds, when he first brought this file back in 2021, said that there is so much land there. We're not harming anything. We're building on the top part at the street. The entire backyard is still undeveloped to the NVCA. We all understand and know that we can't develop in the floodplain, and that's acceptable. Right now, there's not even a divider fence or any property fences. I addressed the issue with my neighbor in regarding to drainage issues. Well, we have the grading plan, which deals with all water runoff, whether it's from the roofs, whether it's from the property. That has all been dealt with. So I know there were some comments, concerns about drainage onto Woodland Drive and then running onto Oxbow. So we've dealt with every aspect that we possibly could, even offering to plant trees between myself and my neighbor because of our construction, and give a little bit buffer zone there because we have a little retainer wall. And so they asked if they could have input into the trees. I said, absolutely. We're willing to plant some trees there and make it beautiful and acceptable to all parties. Like I said, my phone number is on the property. I don't know the neighbors. I talked to several of them. You know, when you're contractors on a street, everybody's coming for some advice or some help, and I've extended that to my neighbors. I've spent a lot of money trying to appease my neighbors. Of course, there's a lot more neighbors that I have not appeased. I can see that today. But I'm willing to talk to them. They could have called me up if they have concerns. None of that happened until, the very last minute. And like I said, this has been ongoing for 2 years. I mean, you figure in that time, this is not, overnight kind of, let's push us through. That did not happen. So I'll just leave that at that for right now. And
Thank you very much for those comments. I will, I guess, unless there's further comments.
May I add something just in respect to Mr. Lehman's comments, if I may?
Yes, go ahead.
Very briefly, with all due respect to Mr. Lehman, I'm sure the house will be absolutely beautiful that he is building. None of us are denying that it'll be a giant, beautiful home, but Mr. Lehman cannot live in 2 homes. So there can be no question here that one of these homes is built for resale. There's no question about that. If he's living in one, great. But this is about development of property and development on 44-foot lots where the rest of the lots are 100 feet wide. And obviously, whatever Nottawasaga Valley Conservation has said to him in the past, it is not what is being written to him now. And as to his comment that we haven't reached out to him, he has also not reached out to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comments. And do you have anything to add to her comments, I guess?
Well, I have been in discussion with the neighbors who are directly my neighbors, like in the small circumference right around my property. We have a very good relationship to the east, to the west, across the street, even further down the road, whether it was, supplying some fill, some wood, some helping with roof structure. I have a very good relationship with them. Unfortunately, some of the ones further out, I don't know yet on that street. I hope to have a great relationship along the street. Like I said, we're not trying to do anything detrimental here. I will be living on that street. This is not for one of my clients. This is my own home. And yes, of course, I can't live in 2 homes. So one eventually will be sold, and I will live in the other one then.
Perfect. Sorry, was there a comment?
Yeah, this is Dan Budzak again, and I have a bit of comment. I've been listening to Mr. whatever all he was saying. It was all about the house he's built. We're not in here disputing the house now that he's built. He talked mostly about that house. We're worried about we don't want a second house built on that property. And he says he's talking to Diane from across the street. I live across the street. He hasn't talked to me. He hasn't talked to Diane. So I don't know who he's talking to. I don't understand what he's saying now.
Okay, thank you for those.
And he says his neighbor, like Jennifer, she's like 1 house away from him. He's talking about the neighbor that he bought the property from. So they're probably friends, which isn't a big problem, but he just seems to think everybody right around him is okay with it. Well, he's wrong.
Okay. Thank you for those comments. I don't think you need to address them. So I'm going to close the public portion of the meeting, I guess, and ask the committee members if they have any questions of the applicant or the staff that are here.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the staff. First of all, remind me what the staff recommendation on this file is?
The staff recommendation on this file is to recommend approval.
Which leads me to, and this really has little to do with you directly, Mr. Lehman. I'm confused about the process by which we thank the NVCA for their input and then ignore them.
So the consideration of the comments provided by the MVCA, it's in the writer's opinion that many of those comments are specifically addressed to the building permit portion of the concerns. So at a certain point, there will be a building permit that will be issued. That will be something that would be considered at that point. But for the purpose of this meeting and for the purpose of what the committee is considering, it's the consent. So it's not to be confused with any type of building permit because we haven't been given any type of concept of what would be built out there.
Well, I understand that, except that clearly so does the NVCA, and this is a severance, and they're opposing the severance. So you're saying the NVCA is wrong to be opposing the severance, that they should be dealing only at the permit stage?
I don't disagree with the comments. The MVCA is certainly able to provide comments on consents. So I don't want to discredit their comments. It's in the writer's opinion that the comments that they provided are more specific to the building permit stage, when in fact we should be considering the consent stage and the application that's being brought forward to the committee.
The river, I mean, I shouldn't probably be passing comment, but the river has been a problem, all right, for a very long time in terms of, here's where my confusion's coming from. Perhaps you can help guide me through this. Further downriver, there are a half a dozen properties where people have died or people have sold or they've tried to make out like bandits on the property values or whatever. Properties have been severed, and the attitude has been the same rules apply as if it was a subdivision nowhere near the water, et cetera, et cetera. So you have small frontages, et cetera, et cetera. I know that's the case because I know the river well. What's the difference between there and here, if you know what I mean?
I'm not following.
Would it be correct in saying that all of these other severances into smaller lots that have been allowed further downriver towards the mouth, this situation is simply a consistency issue, that you're applying the same rules that you applied further downriver?
With respect, I'm not aware of the applications for consent downriver.
Okay, thank you.
I can just briefly, there were some properties that were more in the recent future built on smaller lots on Sunnydale, even on Moseley, just down from the OPP station. They all have walkout basements. They were allowed walkout basements. And in fact, the one that I built across the river on Knox Road East, they came back and actually required me to put in a walkout basement to stabilize the slope. And so we had an 8-foot retainer wall between myself and my neighbor, Armorstone retainer wall, in order to stabilize the bank. And they were given 3 options. They chose the whole cutout of the backyard. Now they're switching gears and saying, well, there are no walkouts allowed. And yet, just recently, 3 houses were built with walkouts. So I don't understand, and that's what I was, even with the NVCA, trying to figure out what is standard here, because it doesn't seem to follow, I think, a standard, I think what you're trying to see, go with like a standard route.
Well, and to be fair, and to be honest and direct about it all, I would much prefer a situation where the staff of the NVCA and the staff of the municipality sort this out before it comes here, because I have great respect for the NVCA, but I also have great respect for our municipal staff, and they seem to be on opposite sides in this situation, and it creates a difficult resolution for those of us making the decision. So it would be nice if there were an opportunity for the two public entities, the NVCA and the municipality, to work this to a reasonable solution prior to it arriving here. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Am I on? Thank you. Yeah, I share the same concerns as Dave's put forward. I actually built a house on the river 5 years ago and had the same struggles with NVCA, with no consistency between properties. You know, next door neighbors even are dependent on the person they talk to at the NVCA, and then they leave and a whole new set of rules come in. I'm of the same opinion as Dave. There needs to actually be some consistency between the town of Wasaga Beach and the NVCA as well, in terms of agreeing to what needs to be done and come to I think this committee with an understanding of going forward together. So I'm a little confused about the discrepancy or the lack of consistency, I guess, or agreement between the town of Wasaga Beach and the NVCA in terms of going forward. So I'm uncomfortable that the NVCA is not approving this application at this point for whatever reasons they've come up with, but they have to be good reasons, I would think, or they wouldn't come forward with them. So I'm a little concerned about approving this application. I'd be of the opinion that we need to defer it in order for the town of Wasaga Beach and the NVCA to come to some sort of understanding that you can come forward with yourself and be confident that it's not going to come back and bite you one way or the other in the future. But I think not having the NVCA on side at this point is, to me, I thought they had the ultimate decision-making power on the river of what goes forward and what doesn't. So I'm uncomfortable, I guess, with what their position is right now. Even if it doesn't affect the one lot, it affects the other. So I think that's, I guess, my confusion at this point, where we sit with this.
Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm a little concerned about the Conservation Authority not really supporting this process here, consent. In which case, we give consent to severance, but they're not going to give consent for this gentleman to build a house. That's, to me, sounds like the cart before the horse. And this is sort of reading between the lines, according. So I'm kind of now thinking, supporting Dave and the other gentleman about maybe we should defer this until there's real clarification here, because as I said, if they're not that happy about the consent and we give consent, are you going to run up against a roadblock about trying to get a house built there? In which case, you've got a piece of land that we've gone through this process, spend a lot of money, and you're not going to be able to build a house. I think it's a valid concern. I think we need to discuss this a bit more, whether it's, and planning, I think you should maybe shine in on this a little bit. What are your thoughts there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it would be the opinion of planning staff that the application being considered is for consent. And the consent itself, as the writer puts in the recommendation report, is supported. The understanding that a building permit will be required at a certain point is not part of the consideration of the consent at this point. In the writer's opinion, whether or not this applicant decides to build or a future property owner decides to build, they will have to adhere to NVCA requirements, and at that point would have to comply with the NVCA permitting process. But in terms of applicable standards with lot creation and town standards, you would have a lot there conceivably wholly outside of the floodplain and wholly outside of the hazards that would be built and designated for residential land use that would comply with minimum standards in terms of lot area and lot frontage.
Go ahead, Dave.
I hear what you're saying, but with respect, NVCA is not here, And they clearly think the issue of severance is worthy of their attention, all right? And they've recommended that we deny it. I'm not going to disrespect municipal staff by voting no, but I will also not be disrespecting the NVCA in this situation. And if I could make a simple recommendation, and this is way outside my purview, it's just me trying to find a solution to this. If the writers of the report and the change in writers in NVCA have created this difficulty, then maybe it's a good idea for their bosses to have lunch and sort stuff out from a policy perspective beyond that. I mean, that's a fairly, at least in other situations, it is not unusual to have two different organizations come together at an executive level and attempt to resolve these differences, because it reminds me of the relationship between the City of Barrie and the Simcoe County District School Board. If one suggests the sky is blue, the other suggests it's slightly gray. All right, and it's never an agreement between them on anything, I know. This is not quite that bad, but it would be nice if it were better. So when the time comes, I'll be voting neither yes nor no. I'll be either moving or supporting someone else's decision to defer. And I know the last thing you want is a deferral, because it means how many years is this going to go on? But I think the alternative is worse.
Well, may I comment just
Thank you.
briefly? Back to the NVCA, we have correspondence, and Joel has correspondence from the NVCA. They were going to provide amended comments back in April of last year. April of last year, 10 months ago. To this date, they did not. What they did was provide these comments. That is the issue I have. I've reached out. I've had multiple meetings with all staff members, with managers. I've tried 3 to 4 attempts to have a meeting with the CEO of the NVCA. Was shot down every time. No meeting. To a point where they had promised last Easter to send the amended comments to Joel so that we could get this meeting triggered. I waited 10 months now. And we have their position in writing where they said we will set a neutral set of comments. We take a neutral position. Now somebody else, last minute, writes comments totally contradicting what their origin. They sent me down a path, just that, Kurt, if you permit this first house, we will do this. Now, they didn't hold up their end of the bargain. And that's what I'm facing here today. It's not, and the other thing, back to the NVCA, when I look at it, they're not really an agency of the government, not to minimize what they do. And they're important to provide comments, protect our environment. End of the day, they are a not-for-profit organization that takes public money, private money, business money, and of course, government money. So just when I look at those aspects is what would stop a developer of making a donation to the NVCA with expectations of being possibly lenient in looking at that? I don't think the NVCA is, if it was a pure, simple government agency funded wholly by the government or the municipalities, okay. They would, I can understand then the power that they would be given. But we also have the provincial government now who has stepped in, passed a bill restricting their powers because they saw, I was there at the NVCA sometimes every week, every 2 weeks with my clients' files as well. And the comments we're getting from developers, it was shocking. I mean, it's a problem. Let me just leave it, it's a problem. And to wait 10 months and we still don't have the amended comments when the town was promised, I was promised. We had the position in writing.
So it should not be that difficult at this point to have somebody, director of planning or whomever, you're an applicant. I'm not saying that it's appropriate for them to ignore you, but they might be less likely to ignore the director of planning with basically waiving that email and indicating what is going on and how should we be proceeding. I think that's a reasonable thing, and therefore I think a short deferment is appropriate. If not, I'll be happy to vote no.
I think you had another comment to make, or? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this comment is for staff. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is taking into my associate's comments here, is that something that could be addressed, expedited very quickly, possibly, Joel, that another conversation that could be taken to sort of move this thing along within 30 days instead of 10 months, so when it makes it a little easier for us to come back and make a decision? Or is this going to drag on?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't think it's fair to put a date on there because I just don't think it would be possible to do that. But I think if we're looking at comments and the tone of the report here, staff does support it. So if there's a concern that it's mainly the MVCA that's going to have to approve it and the MVCA permit, which is the afterthought of the consent application, I don't want, I guess I would just continue to stress that the application being considered is for consent, and the writer's opinion in here is the planning staff's opinion that the consent is appropriate at this point. So I believe if there is a concern by the committee members, and if there was a recommendation for deferral, the way I see it playing out is that the applicant has provided an engineering report to the MVCA. The MVCA has reviewed the materials provided and have not decided to issue approval through their comments regarding the consent. However, there will be a point in time where through the application of a building permit, they will have to reconsider whether or not it's appropriate to construct a dwelling on there if the committee decides to approve. So I don't want there to be a distinction with the building permit process now because to what's being considered, it would be the consent application specifically.
Thank you. I guess notwithstanding my comments earlier about the cart before the horse, I have gone and looked at this property and the surrounding areas and all the houses, and personally, I was willing to vote yes for to consent this. Looking at the property, it's well treed. I don't think it's going to impact the neighbor. As a former builder myself, I don't think it's going to impact the neighborhood. Lots of trees there. The building envelope is up at the back part of the property on the high part. So if we have to work within our guidelines here as a committee, then I would certainly vote for consent at this time. Thank you.
So I just have a question for Joel. So again, this is an application for consent. So I guess it's a comment for, the applicant too. So currently there's a house that's built or being built on part of the property.
Yeah.
When you go, assuming that you get approval today for this consent, and you want to build on that property, you still have to get NVCA approval for that building.
Still an NVCA permit, yes.
Correct.
Plus a town permit, so there's two permits.
Correct, building
Yes.
permit, and part of the building permit is...
Construction permit, yes.
And part of that would be getting NVCA approval. You may be out of luck if they say, no, we're not giving you the permission because you're within the floodplains or whatever the case may be for the house.
Yeah, speaking to that, the engineering was done for both properties, so the NVCA was well aware of both parcels. And engineering's been done. Even the house and building envelope was drawn out on both properties so that they could see the total effect. What if it was severed? What would the entire thing look like? What would be the impact of the entirety of two separate? Then we went forward and then just dealt with part A as if this was a possibility and permitted that part. And that's why they steered me down that road and said, listen, permit the first house. Then we know all the parameters are there. That means we know all the setbacks that are there. We know if there's going to be, if it's even buildable. That was what my job was to prove. Is there a building envelope that can be buildable on that severed property? And to that, they would have to answer yes. And going through that permit stage, I mean, technically, I've done all the work for the permit part already. And they seen that. However, when I went to permit it, I had to kind of wipe all that out so that they weren't approving the severed part, and they were then just looking at the one property. But like I said, all the processes have been done as if there were two properties already. So they know that's, and we're not trying to sneak anything. We went through that, all that specifically, all the studies and everything have been done for, as if there were two properties.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. You mentioned you used to live on Oxbow.
Knox Road East.
Oh, Knox
Yeah,
Road East.
diagonally across from that property, yeah.
Is that, what was the address there?
108.
108, okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking directly across the street, and there's a lot directly across the street that has been severed, and it looks kind of identical to this lot that you're proposing, or the two lots. So I wondered if maybe you had purchased the lot right across the road.
I would love to.
I think we need to just be aware that these are two separate processes. Yes. This is for consent to sever, and I am happy to support it unless there is a reason, like looking at the analysis that staff did. They've obviously gone through the Planning Act, the PPS, and they've obviously done their research and provided their professional opinion. So unless there's a reason not to support it, which I can't see right now, based on the comments in the staff report, again, knowing that potentially you're gonna have to go through this process and get a building permit with the NVCA. So I don't see any reason why I can't support it based on the analysis that staff have done to show that it meets the requirements for consent.
I'm sorry to jump in here, but can I just ask?
So, sorry, the public meeting of the portion has been closed, so.
But Mr. Lehman has been allowed to speak.
So the committee is asking clarifying questions. So you've been provided with an opportunity to speak. So at this point, I would just ask that you mute yourself. You can still stay on the conversation, but at this point, it's the committee that are speaking to staff and the applicant just to clarify any kind of questions they may have. And I have a question from Harold. Go ahead.
I see where this is going. There's going to be 2 against and 2 for, which will defeat the motion. So I want to avoid that as much as we can, obviously. You know, to me, it's as simple as getting a letter from the NVCA that says they support the consent, and off we go. I understand that sounds like it'd be very difficult to get, at least in a timely way. Would that be fair to say, or is that even possible to get something that addresses what we're talking about specifically rather than a future build? Is there something that we can get from them that says we support this portion of the application, future building applications will be submitted to another measurement?
We have tried that. We've gone down that road. And like I said, we did get a position from them, and that was clear in the email that they would take a neutral step. They wanted the committee then.
Point of order. We're now into repetitiveness, all right? We've heard that on multiple occasions. I think the question was directed to staff.
So I believe through you, Mr. Chair, the comments from the MVCA do address the consent. In their opinion, they've provided their comments to the consent. It's the writer's opinion for the staff report that informing their opinion and their comments, they're taking into consideration the building permit process. And in the analysis that's completed within the staff report here, that there is conformity to the PPS that would allow for consent, and the tone of the MVCA's comments are taking an opposite from that. So I don't think that there's going to be a differing opinion from the MVCA in this case. Mind you, I don't want to own that opinion because I'm not sure what the MVCA would come back with if it were deferred once again.
Go ahead, Dave.
I'm sorry, we get into these things and it's sort of, we're mired in muck. So I just don't understand the complexity of this in terms of how it's tough. If we decide to defer for 30 days, and then as a part of that motion, make it conditional upon someone talking to somebody, I don't know their titles, or I'd include them directly in this, but whomsoever is the area manager or whomever for the NVCA, to ask them one simple question, all right? Please divide your comments between the severance, given your contributions or conditions over the build, and let us know if you would be willing to support the severance. I hear what you're saying, but that's not necessarily what they're saying. Hell, I love my phone. If I knew how to turn it off, I would. So I just don't understand why we simply can't pick up the phone, talk to I don't mean you, sir. You're the applicant, and they're not necessarily wanting to talk to you at this point. But I don't understand why we can't, meaning someone on staff, can't pick up the phone, talk to somebody there, and say, you know, we would like to do the consent part. You've got control, or at least engagement over the build portion later. And that's a good point for someone from our staff to use the email that he shared with you, that their previous position had been neutral. That might be something that would allow us to do this simply. I think the concern that my colleague and I are most concerned about, or at least being most vocal about, is what at least I am perceiving as being a lack of respect for the NVCA's position. And I don't want to turn this into, and it sounds as if some people do, I don't mean amongst my colleagues, I don't want to turn this into love my staff or love the NVCA. I mean, everybody involved in this is working for the good of the community, all right? Nobody's paid enough not to. So at the end of the day, I don't see how this is, I mean, we've waited this long, we might as well do it nicely. All right, I'm done, thank you.
Go ahead, Harold.
I guess I'm of the same opinion as Dave in terms of going forward, even to defer it for 30 days until our next meeting, to give staff an opportunity to contact the NVCA. If you get a response, you get a response. If you don't, we don't. And at the next meeting, we can make a decision one way or the other.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do want to reiterate that the comments from the MVCA do address the consent as well. It's a differing opinion from what they have in their comments to the town staff's opinion and interpretation of the PPS. So there is comments provided by the MVCA with the consent.
I guess it's not clear. That's the concern. It's their comments, and they're negative. If they're positive, we'd have no problem here, but they're negative. And if they were to clarify where the negative aspect of this applies, if it's the whole thing, then we have a problem, I think. But if it's just the building portion of it, not the consent, then it's not an issue. It's just, it all sounds negative to me. They're saying the whole thing is not going to happen in their opinion. So I think that's where it really, I have a real problem.
So I'm just going to say a few words and I'll let you. So if we refuse or deny this application today, we will need good, solid reasons for not supporting the application. I'm just saying, if we decide to defer this, I mean, that is a potential option for the committee. I don't think the applicant wants to defer this matter. I think he's been waiting a long period of time to bring this application forward. So again, I would like, there is a potential if we defer this that we're going to get the same comments back from the NVCA. Staff who've done analysis and reviewed the policies and the Planning Act are of the opinion that this can move forward. If we are suggesting that it's not, or it can't, or it shouldn't go forward, then we need good reasons for that. So again, those are my comments. So I think Dave had maybe a further comment, and no.
No, I have another comment. I think we do have good reason to have an objection here. At the end of the day, NVCA is not supporting it. So I think that's my whole issue, and I think the point of deferral would probably be a way to go.
Ready for a motion?
So I'm not an expert when it comes to this. Do we need to vote on what is being proposed, like, or can a member bring forward another motion?
So I believe my understanding would be if the committee is going to, which it doesn't seem like, go with the recommendation in the staff report, there's no new motion that needs to be presented. If there's going to be a separate motion besides what was recommended through the staff report, that needs to be brought forward and then voted on.
I guess, do we need to vote on this one before, and Dave's shaking his head no? We don't? So
you can make the vote on the recommendation as is, and if it's, or if there's a separate motion, I believe you can make that vote before that.
So I just don't want, like, if we ask for the vote, if everyone is in favor of supporting or not, and that doesn't, if majority of members don't want to support that, then that obviously fails. And then somebody can put a motion on the table to defer. Go ahead.
Respect to everybody involved, and I do have some background in this. If we vote on this and it's turned down, Mr. Lehman's out of luck, all right? There's nothing wrong with, it's entirely in order for one of us, one of the four of us, well, not you, but one of the other three, to put on a motion to defer for however long, to what end. And that would then save him the negative vote, all right? Because it doesn't look like he's going to get the positive one, and things fail on a tie. So that's my only input at this point.
Thank you for clarifying. And so I guess your echo, I know I can hear it.
I don't know whether that's it.
I think that was it. So I think you have a motion that you're going to put forward.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to ask staff, our guidelines as far as consent and things go, is this now including the Conservation Authority that we have to take into consideration every single thing, or their opinions, or their decisions outside of our guidelines for consent based on what the planning department is recommending? Because we seem to be now all of a sudden Conservation Authority decisions.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's certainly valid comments, and I don't want to discredit any comments from the Conservation Authority. So, as similar to any internal and internal departments and external agency where we do request comments to be provided, they should be considered by the committee. There is not a distinction that what the MVCA says necessarily has to go, or what the Public Works Department says necessarily has to go. Their comments are to inform the committee members with whether or not the comments justify the approval, and whether or not any conditions by those comments make their way into an approval or deferral, however the committee should choose to vote.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. In which case, then, if we move to defer, then I would vote for deference for 30 days.
So before I get you to, before I get you to put forward a motion, I just, my concern is we request a deferral, and we're in the same position next month. The NVCA provides the exact same comments that they provided. We're not making a decision. We're fettering our ability as a committee. We need to make a decision. We can't just continue to defer because the municipality and the NVCA have different opinions. Staff have their opinion, NVCA has their opinion. I mean, I don't think it's an option, but I mean, I would be prepared to recess for 5 minutes to see if we can get the NVCA on the phone, on the call to speak to some of their comments. I mean, I don't know if that's an option for staff.
No.
I don't think it would be a possibility at this point, given the informed notice of time of public meeting. The MVCA had the invitation as well as everyone else who would have been in attendance today, so they certainly had the ability to attend and opted not to. I would just remind the committee potentially that if it was deferred, there's always the potential for having a 5-member vote the next time, which could avoid a potential tie vote, but that's not to impact the decision here.
Okay, thank you for that, and I appreciate those comments. So I think those are all my comments anyways.
I think we should defer. I think the next meeting, we can make a decision at that point of how we go forward. We could all agree to accept the recommendation. We could defer it again, or we could defeat it. But I think the next meeting, we can make a decision. As Joel said, there could be 2 other members here, and it could go one way or the other, frankly. But I think it's worth the effort and the time to try to make another appeal to the NVCA to get them to clarify at least their position on where they stand with this specifically. Another 30 days to me, I'm sure you'd like to do it right away, but I think you'd prefer to do that than have this defeated and then you're out of luck. And I don't think we want to go there.
Yeah.
That item, whatever it is, that item be deferred until our next meeting to provide time for our staff to request a clarification from the NVCA with regard to the consent application, given in particular the existence of the previous email suggesting neutrality. That will be my motion.
I would just say that at this point, and I appreciate, we'll refer back to the meeting minutes in order to make the actual decisions before, so I'm just jotting notes. That's the only thing I wanted to make note of.
All right, do we need to be so specific, I guess?
Yes, absolutely, because without the specificity, staff, to be fair to staff, they need the direction that we're actually asking for. Otherwise, it just sits there in limbo, and the NVCA doesn't even know that we've deferred it. So I think the specificity is necessary because it also provides not only direction for them, should bring immediate awareness to the NVCA, and it provides the rationale for what it is we're doing. So I think the specificity is legitimate.
Okay, and, thank you. I guess my comments, procedurally, is there enough time to, like, do we need to provide notice to the public that this is coming back? I guess this is a question for staff, and we obviously know when the next scheduled meeting is. Does that work for you? If we defer this, can you re-attend at the next meeting?
Well, I'll definitely make it work. And I'll have my discussions with the NVCA as well because of the comments they previously put me down. And now, like I said, we were in stalemate. We could not get any comments out of the NVCA. So giving 30 days, if we're going to get a comment, like you said, maybe with a higher upper, with more influence to push the agenda, maybe that might work and get a consensus of some sort. But yes, I will absolutely try my best to be here in a month.
Just give me 1 second. So do we have a date? Like, do we know the date when the meeting will be?
I believe the date is March 15th, and we are still in good standing with making notice. We haven't yet made notices for the March meeting yet.
Okay.
So there's ample time to make the notice for this if committee should just decide to defer.
Thank you. And go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chair, for the planner, I think that we should, if we're deferring, we should definitely have the planners call the Conservation Authority and use whatever influence or whatever we need to get that answer. Thank you.
To get a response, not to influence their decision.
No, get a response. Thank you.
Sorry, before I guess I just want to make sure it worked for all parties involved. So it seems like everything is in order, so do we have a seconder? And Daniel? And so we have a mover and a seconder to defer, and all in favor? And that is carried.
Can I just make sure that staff got the actual motion, so when the minutes come forward, the specific motion as I said it, what went through? You have it?
I don't have it written down, but we will be referring to the minutes as recorded.
This is recorded, okay, fine, thank you. Sorry, that's not aggressive, I didn't mean it that way.
Okay, so for the members that are, or not the members, but the public that have joined us online, this matter has been deferred until the next meeting. And it was requested that staff here talk to the NVCA in regards to their comments and I guess get clarification on some of the comments. Thank you for joining us today and appreciate your comments. Thank you for joining us today as well, and I apologize it took so long to discuss this matter. I hope that the next meeting, that maybe this can be put on as number 1, just so he's not waiting around as long. And again, I appreciate you coming out and again for making yourself available at the next meeting. And I think that concludes all of the applications today. I do need to close out the meeting. Let me just double check that I'm not missing anything. So. Oh, right there. The next meeting is scheduled for March 15th. At 2 o'clock here. And so the next is the adjournment. So do I have a mover? Sure. Moved and seconded. So Dave and Daniel, and it's 4:10. So thank you very much and good night.